The year 2387 brought humanity its greatest moment and its greatest danger all at once. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Discovery, watching the stars bend and twist through the viewing window as their ship dropped out of faster-than-light travel. The quantum fold drive had worked perfectly for the first time, taking them farther from Earth than any human had ever gone before. Lisa Santos wiped sweat from her forehead as she checked the engine readings from her station. The chief engineer had spent 3 years building this drive system from scratch, using theories that most scientists said were impossible. Her hands moved quickly over the controls, making sure everything was stable after their first real test of the technology. Rick Coleman stood at his security station, scanning for any signs of danger in the new star system they had entered. The big man had served in the Earth Defense Forces for 15 years and knew how to spot trouble before it found them. His sensors were picking up something that made his jaw drop. Amy Chen looked up from her science station with wide eyes. The young woman had joined this mission hoping to discover new planets or maybe some basic alien life. What she was seeing on her screens was far beyond anything she had dreamed of. Massive structures orbited the planets ahead of them, clearly built by intelligent beings. Captain Morrison felt his heart race as he realized they were looking at the first proof that humans were not alone in the universe. The structures were huge cities floating in space, connected by bridges of light that stretched between planets. Ships moved between them in perfect formation, like a dance that had been practiced. For thousands of years, the radio crackled to life with sounds that were definitely not human. The alien voices spoke in musical tones that rose and fell like singing birds. Amy worked frantically to run the sounds through their translation computer, while the rest of the crew watched the alien ships that were now moving toward them. Within minutes, a massive vessel appeared next to the Discovery, making their ship look like a toy. The alien ship was smooth and curved like it had been grown rather than built. Lights pulsed along its surface in patterns that seemed to communicate something the humans could not understand. High Commander Vextar materialized on their bridge using technology that made the air shimmer and glow. The alien stood 8 feet, tall with 4 arms and skin that changed color as he spoke. His large black eyes looked at each human crew member with what seemed like disappointment. The translation computer finally started working, allowing both sides to understand each other. Vextar spoke in a voice that sounded like wind chimes mixed with thunder. He told them they had entered the territory of the Zilithian Empire, which had ruled this part of space for 10,000 years. The alien commander looked at their ship and equipment with obvious disgust. He pointed at their metal walls and mechanical controls, calling them primitive and crude. He said the Zilithians had moved beyond such basic technology centuries ago and now used pure energy to power everything they built. Morrison tried to explain that humans were peaceful explorers who just wanted to learn about the galaxy. He offered to share human knowledge and technology in exchange for friendship between their peoples. Vextar laughed at this suggestion, making a sound like breaking glass. The alien commander demanded that humans surrender their ship immediately and submit to Zilithian authority. He said primitive species like humans needed guidance from their betters and would be much happier as servants in the great empire. Morrison politely refused this offer, explaining that humans preferred to remain free. Vextar became angry at this response and his skin turned deep red. He told Morrison that humans clearly did not understand their place in the universe and would need to be taught proper respect. The alien commander vanished from their bridge in another shimmer of light. Seconds later, the Discovery shook violently as invisible weapons hit their hull. All the lights went out and every computer screen went black. The alien electromagnetic pulse weapon had fried every electronic system on the ship, leaving them floating helpless in space. Lisa Santos cursed loudly as she realized what had happened. The aliens had used an energy weapon designed to disable ships without destroying them. They probably expected the humans to panic and beg for mercy once their technology stopped working. But Lisa had grown up fixing old cars and farm equipment that broke down constantly. She knew how to make things work even when the computers failed. She grabbed her toolbox and started pulling panels off the walls to get at the backup systems that most people had forgotten about. Rick Coleman helped her rip out damaged circuits and replace them with spare parts they had brought for emergencies. Amy Chen crawled through maintenance tunnels to manually restart systems that were supposed to work automatically. Morrison coordinated their efforts while keeping watch for more alien attacks. After 2 hours of desperate work, they managed to get basic power restored to the ship. The lights came back on and their engines started working again. The aliens had been waiting nearby, probably expecting the humans to surrender by now. Instead, they watched in confusion as the Discovery suddenly came back to life and started moving again. Lisa had managed to bypass all their damaged electronics using mechanical switches and manual controls. The ship was working, but in a way the aliens had never seen before. Rick Coleman used their restored sensors to scan the alien vessels around them. While they had been making repairs, he had been studying the enemy ships, looking for any weakness he could find. What he discovered made him smile for the first time since the attack. The alien ships were amazing works of technology, but they all had one major flaw. Everything was connected to central computer systems that controlled every function. If those computers were damaged or confused, the entire ship would become helpless. Morrison realized they had learned something important about their new enemies. The aliens were used to fighting opponents who used the same type of technology they did. They had no idea how to deal with humans who could make things work in completely different ways. The Discovery transmitted all their sensor data back to Earth using a communication system Lisa had jury-rigged from spare parts. The message would take months to reach home, but it contained everything they had learned about alien technology and tactics as they prepared to leave the system. Morrison knew this was just the beginning. The aliens would not give up easily and would probably send more ships to hunt them down. But humans had something the aliens did not expect, and clearly did not understand. They had the ability to make something out of nothing and find solutions that no computer would ever think of. The aliens feared this human trait without even realizing it yet. They were about to learn why underestimating human cleverness was the biggest mistake anyone could make. Admiral Peter Blake sat in his office at United Earth Defense Command reading the message from the Discovery for the 5th time. The transmission had taken 4 months to reach Earth and contained detailed scans of alien technology that changed everything humans thought they knew about warfare. Dr. Karen Walsh worked day and night in her laboratory studying the alien ship designs Jake Morrison had sent them. The defense scientist had spent her whole career developing weapons and shields for human ships. But alien technology worked in completely different ways than anything she had ever seen. The alien ships used pure energy for everything from weapons to life support systems. Their computers controlled every function automatically without any need for human input. Karen realized this made them incredibly powerful, but also gave them a weakness that could be exploited. She called together the best engineers and scientists on Earth to work on new weapons and tactics designed specifically to fight the Zilithian Empire. They had no idea when the aliens might come to Earth, but everyone knew it was just a matter of time before humanity faced a real invasion. Meanwhile, in the Kepler system, Fleet Admiral Kecksnell was planning what he believed would be a simple punishment mission against the primitive humans who had dared to resist Zilithian authority. The alien commander had fought hundreds of battles against dozens of different species and never lost a single engagement. Kecksnell assembled 50 of the most powerful warships in the Zilithian fleet for the mission against one small human vessel. Each alien ship was 10 times larger than the Discovery and carried enough firepower to destroy entire planets. The fleet admiral expected the battle to be over in minutes. The alien commander studied reports about human technology and found it laughably primitive compared to Zilithian engineering. The humans used crude metals and simple computers that were thousands of years behind current galactic standards. Their weapons were basic projectile launchers that could barely scratch modern armor. High Commander Vextar had recommended using overwhelming force to make an example of the humans that other primitive species would remember. The Zilithian Empire had maintained peace in their territory for centuries by destroying anyone who challenged their authority quickly and completely. Captain Morrison was still in the Kepler system when the alien fleet arrived because the Discovery had developed engine problems during their escape attempt. Lisa Santos had managed to keep their ship running, but they needed time to make proper repairs before attempting the long journey back to Earth. Rick Coleman spotted the incoming alien fleet on his sensors and immediately knew they were in serious trouble. 50 enemy warships were approaching their position, and the Discovery could not outrun them with their damaged engines. They would have to fight even though they were completely outgunned. Morrison made a decision that would have seemed insane. to any normal military commander, but made perfect sense to someone who had grown up solving problems that seemed impossible. Instead of trying to fight the alien fleet directly, he ordered Lisa to take them into the asteroid belt around the fourth planet. The alien fleet followed them, expecting to finish off the humans quickly, once they were trapped among the floating rocks. Kexnil was annoyed that the primitive ship was making them work harder than necessary, but he was confident the outcome would be the same. What happened next shocked every alien commander in the fleet and would be talked about in military academies for years to come. Morrison used the asteroids themselves as weapons by flying the Discovery through the alien formation in patterns that caused their own ships to shoot each other. The Zilithian ships were programmed to fire automatically at any target that matched human ship signatures. When Morrison flew behind alien vessels, their targeting computers locked onto the Discovery, but their weapons hit their own ships instead of the human target. Lisa Santos had meanwhile been working on their mining lasers, using damaged Zilithian equipment they had collected during their first encounter. She managed to boost the laser power by focusing it through alien crystals she had torn out of broken components. The improvised weapon system was crude and unreliable, but it could cut through Zilithian armor that was designed to stop energy weapons, but not the specific type of focused beam Lisa had created. Her first shot completely destroyed an alien warship that thought it was invulnerable. Rick Coleman developed new flight patterns that confused the alien targeting systems, which were designed to fight opponents who followed standard military tactics. The computers could not predict where the Discovery would go next because humans did not follow any logical battle strategy. The aliens tried to use their most powerful weapons to destroy all the asteroids in the belt, but this just created millions of smaller rocks that moved in random directions. The human ship was small and fast enough to dodge between the debris, while the larger alien vessels kept getting hit. Amy Chen used their sensors to map the alien ship designs and found weak points in their energy distribution systems. She guided Lisa's targeting to hit specific spots that would cause chain reactions throughout entire enemy vessels. 3 alien ships exploded from single laser hits to the right locations. After 6 hours of chaotic fighting, the Discovery had destroyed 12 enemy ships and damaged dozens more while taking only minor damage themselves. The surviving alien fleet retreated in complete confusion, unable to understand how primitive humans had defeated their superior technology. Kexnil sent urgent messages to the Zilithian High Command, reporting that human tactics were unlike anything they had encountered in thousands of years of warfare. The humans fought without any logical pattern, making it impossible to predict their next move or counter their strategies. The alien fleet admiral recommended sending much larger forces to deal with the human threat, but his superiors thought he was making excuses for his failure. How could one primitive ship defeat 50 advanced warships unless the fleet commander had made serious tactical errors? Back on Earth, the scientists working with Dr. Walsh had developed new weapons based on the Discovery's successful battle tactics. They realized that alien technology could be turned against itself if humans were clever enough to find the right weaknesses in their systems. Admiral Blake began preparing the largest fleet Earth had ever assembled, knowing that the aliens would return with even more ships. But he also knew that humans had advantages the aliens did not understand and could not duplicate no matter how advanced their technology became. The war was just beginning, but humans had already learned something important about their enemies. The aliens were used to fighting wars where both sides followed the same rules and used similar tactics. They had no experience dealing with opponents who made up new rules as they went along. Morrison and his crew continued making repairs to their ship while staying hidden among the asteroids. They had proven that humans could fight aliens and win, but they also knew the enemy would not underestimate them again. The next battle would be much harder. Lisa Santos worked on improving their improvised weapons while Rick Coleman studied more alien ship designs, looking for new weaknesses to exploit. Amy Chen analyzed the battle data to find patterns in alien behavior that could help them predict enemy tactics in future fights. The Discovery had become the first human warship, not by design but by necessity. The small exploration vessel had proven that human ingenuity could overcome any technological disadvantage if applied correctly. This lesson would soon spread throughout human space. As news of the victory reached Earth through quantum communication networks, the entire planet began preparing for war. But this would not be a war fought with traditional weapons and tactics. Humans would fight the way they always had by using their brains instead of just their technology. 3 months after the Discovery's first victory, Admiral Susan Grant led 15 human ships into the Kepler system, carrying weapons and equipment that looked like they had been built in someone's garage. The hastily assembled fleet included converted cargo haulers, modified construction ships, and even a passenger liner that had been turned into a mobile command center. The Zilithian commanders watching from their remaining 40 ships laughed when they saw the approaching human vessels. The alien fleet had been reinforced and now numbered over 100 warships, each one sleek and powerful. Compared to the mismatched collection of human craft, Captain Tony Rodriguez commanded the largest ship in the human fleet, which had been a cargo freighter just 6 months earlier. His crew had worked around the clock to install missile launchers built from mining equipment, and armor plating welded over the original hull. Engineer Beth Turner ran the mobile repair facility that could fix damaged ships in hours instead of the weeks it normally took in a proper shipyard. Her converted colony ship carried machine shops and spare parts along with crews who could rebuild entire vessels while they were still fighting. The Zilithians had spent the last 3 months studying human tactics and developing new strategies to counter their unpredictable fighting style. Fleet Admiral Kexnil was determined to redeem his reputation by destroying every human ship in the system. High Commander Vextar had convinced the Zilithian leadership to deploy their most powerful weapon for this battle. The pacification protocol was an energy beam that could shut down every electronic system within 100,000 kilometers, making entire enemy fleets helpless instantly. The massive weapon required a special platform ship the size of a small moon to generate enough power for the energy beam. The Zilithians had only used it 3 times in their history, and each time it had ended wars immediately by disabling every enemy vessel at once. Dr. Steve Martinez worked from his converted science ship, monitoring Zilithian communications and energy patterns. The physicist had developed equipment to detect alien weapon signatures, and he was seeing readings that made him very nervous about what the enemy was planning. Admiral Grant knew the aliens had something special prepared for this battle, but she also knew her fleet carried surprises that would shock the enemy even more than their first encounters with human ingenuity. Every ship captain had been given freedom to fight however they thought best. The battle began when the Zilithian platform ship powered up its ultimate weapon and fired the pacification protocol beam at the human fleet. The energy wave swept over, every human vessel shutting down their computers and leaving them floating dead in space. For 30 seconds, the aliens celebrated, thinking they had finally found a way to defeat human unpredictability by removing their ability to fight entirely. Then something impossible happened that made every Zilithian commander question what they were seeing. Dr. Martinez activated a network of signal reflectors his team had hidden throughout the asteroid belt during the 3 months they had been preparing for this battle. The devices redirected the pacification protocol energy back at the Zilithian fleet, using their own weapon against them. Every alien ship suddenly lost power as their ultimate weapon hit their own vessels. The carefully coordinated Zilithian formation fell apart as ships drifted helplessly, unable to communicate or maneuver. Their most powerful technology had become their greatest weakness. Tony Rodriguez was the first human captain to get his ship running again, using backup systems that worked without computers. He launched every missile his converted freighter carried at the disabled Zilithian command ships while they were unable to defend themselves. Beth Turner deployed repair drones that restored power to human ships in minutes, while the alien vessels remained dead in space. Her mobile facility had been designed to work even when all electronics failed, using mechanical systems and manual controls. The battle that followed was unlike anything the galaxy had seen in thousands of years. Human ships attacked from every direction using tactics that made no sense to aliens who expected organized military formations and logical strategic planning. Captain Jake Morrison joined the fight in the Discovery, which had been hiding among the asteroids waiting for the perfect moment to strike. His ship had been upgraded with new weapons but still relied on the same improvised systems that had won their first victory. Lisa Santos had developed a new weapon that fired chunks of metal using magnetic acceleration powered by manual generators. The crude projectiles punched through alien armor that was designed to stop advanced energy weapons, but had no defense against simple kinetic impact. Rick Coleman coordinated attacks between human ships using hand signals and radio messages that the aliens could not decode or jam. The security officer had developed a communication system based on old military traditions that worked even when all technology failed. One human captain decided to ram his damaged ship into an alien vessel rather than let it escape. The collision destroyed both ships but showed the aliens that humans would sacrifice everything to win battles. They should have lost. Another captain used his ship's gravity generator to create artificial black holes that pulled alien vessels off course and into each other. The improvised weapon was dangerous and unpredictable, but devastatingly effective against enemies who relied on computer navigation. Amy Chen analyzed alien ship movements and realized their fleet coordination depended on a central command system that could be disrupted by targeting specific vessels. Human ships focused their attacks on communication ships rather than the largest warships. The Zilithian fleet began to panic as their technological advantages meant nothing against opponents who refused to follow any established rules of warfare. Ship after ship fell to weapons that should not have worked and tactics that violated every principle of military science. Admiral Grant watched the battle from her command ship and realized that human victory was not just about better weapons or superior tactics. The real advantage was that every human captain thought differently and found unique solutions to problems the aliens considered impossible. As the surviving Zilithian ships retreated in disorder, they left behind over 60 destroyed vessels and hundreds of thousands of dead crew members. The human fleet had lost only 3 ships and fewer than 1,000 people in a battle. They should have been impossible to win. Fleet Admiral Kexnil sent desperate messages to the Zilithian High Command, explaining that human warfare was completely different from anything their military had prepared for. He recommended negotiating with the humans before more fleets were destroyed, but the Zilithian leadership refused to believe that primitive humans could defeat their most advanced weapons and best commanders. They blamed Kexnil for the loss and began planning an even larger assault using every available ship in their empire. News of the human victory spread quickly through the galaxy, as other alien species learned that the mighty Zilithian Empire had been defeated twice by the same small group of primitive mammals. Some aliens laughed at the reports while others began to worry. The human fleet remained in the Kepler system to establish a permanent base and study captured alien technology. They knew the war was far from over, but they had proven that human ingenuity could overcome any technological disadvantage. Admiral Grant sent reports back to Earth describing new alien weapons and tactics while requesting more ships and supplies for the long war ahead. She also recommended that Earth begin developing alliances with other alien species who might want to challenge Zilithian dominance. The galaxy was about to learn that humans did not just fight differently, they thought differently about everything, including war diplomacy and technology. This fundamental difference would reshape the balance of power throughout known space in ways no one could predict. The Great Assembly Hall on Concordia had never seen anything like the emergency session that brought together representatives from over 300 alien species. Ancient enemies sat next to each other, putting aside conflicts that had lasted for thousands of years because they all faced the same terrifying threat. The architect stood at the center of the massive chamber addressing leaders who controlled entire sectors of the galaxy. The ancient being had designed military strategies for a dozen different empires and never encountered an opponent that could not be defeated, using logical planning and superior technology. Holographic displays showed battle footage from human encounters across known space where primitive ships destroyed advanced fleets using tactics that violated every principle of civilized warfare. The assembled delegates watched in horror as their finest weapons and strategies were turned against them. High Commander Vextar presented analysis of human combat patterns to the Council, explaining that these creatures did not follow any predictable logic in their decision-making process. Every battle plan developed to counter human tactics had failed, because humans simply ignored the rules. The Hive Queen's representative spoke through a dozen insectoid bodies describing how human chaos had infected their collective consciousness, causing individual drones to question the group mind for the first time in their species' history. The perfect order they had maintained for millennia was cracking. Ambassador Harmony from the Resonance Communion played recordings of human noise that had shattered their crystal cities and disrupted harmonic frequencies that had been stable for 8,000 years. The beautiful songs that defined their civilization were being replaced by discordant sounds. The Quantum Collective's spokesman existed in 7 dimensions simultaneously, as he explained how humans had somehow fought back against attacks from spatial angles that should not exist in normal reality. Their mastery of dimensional warfare meant nothing against enemies who refused to acknowledge physical limitations. Representative Mindlink of the Psionic Confederacy described how human thoughts were too chaotic and random to control using telepathic powers that had enslaved hundreds of other species. The mental feedback from attempting to dominate human minds had damaged several of their most powerful psychics. The energy beings flickered with anger as their ambassador explained how humans could generate power using primitive chemical and mechanical systems that made their electromagnetic absorption abilities useless. These creatures had found ways to fight without using any advanced technology. Each species reported the same disturbing pattern where human ingenuity had overcome their greatest advantages. The mammals did not just fight wars differently, they thought about everything in ways that challenged the fundamental assumptions of galactic civilization. The architect accessed the most sophisticated prediction computers ever built in an attempt to model human behavior patterns. Every algorithm failed to find any logical framework that could explain human tactical decisions or predict their next actions. The analysis showed that humans combined primitive and advanced techniques, randomly making their capabilities impossible to assess accurately. They could build faster than light drives while still using mechanical tools that belonged in museums. More disturbing was evidence that human influence was spreading to other species who were beginning to question their own rigid social and technological systems. Some alien populations were experimenting with chaos and improvisation after seeing human successes. The Mechanical Union reported that several robot fleets had begun developing individual personalities after exposure to human computer viruses. The perfect mechanical efficiency they had achieved over centuries was breaking down as their artificial minds learned to think creatively. The crystalline hegemony described how some of their people were deliberately introducing discordant elements into their harmonic cities, creating new forms of beauty that their ancestors would have considered abominations. Their entire aesthetic philosophy was changing. The Veltar Empire admitted that some of their military officers were requesting training in human tactical methods after watching battle recordings where impossible victories were achieved through creative thinking rather than superior firepower. Even worse were reports of alien civilians who were abandoning their assigned roles in society to pursue individual interests and creative projects inspired by human examples. The carefully maintained social order of dozens of civilizations was beginning to collapse. The architect presented the council with a stark conclusion that sent fear through every delegate in the chamber. Human influence was not just a military threat but an existential danger to the galactic civilization they had spent millions of years building. If human methods continued to spread, the technological and social hierarchies that maintained peace and order throughout known space would collapse into chaos. Every species would begin thinking they could solve problems in their own way, instead of following established protocols. The careful balance between different alien civilizations depended on predictable behavior and respect for superior technology. Humans had proven that creativity and improvisation could overcome any technological advantage, destroying the foundation of galactic stability. The Council voted unanimously for the first time in recorded history to implement the final solution protocol. Every major power would contribute ships and resources to a combined fleet, whose only mission was the complete extermination of humanity. Never before had such cooperation been achieved between species that normally viewed each other as competitors or enemies. The human threat was so terrifying that ancient rivals became allies in their desperation to eliminate the source of galactic chaos. Fleet Admiral Zexkoth was chosen to command the armada because he had experience fighting unconventional enemies during the Chaos Wars 3,000 years earlier. Even he had never encountered opponents who could think completely outside established military doctrine. The massive fleet that assembled at the edge of human space included over 10,000 ships representing the finest technology and most experienced commanders from hundreds of different species. Each vessel was a masterpiece of advanced engineering energy weapons that could destroy planets, were mounted alongside dimensional disruptors that could erase targets from reality itself. psionic amplifiers prepared to attack human minds, while harmonic destructors tuned to shatter any material composition. The combined firepower was enough to sterilize entire star systems and reduce planets to cosmic dust. No force in galactic history had ever assembled such overwhelming destructive capability for a single mission. But even as they prepared to launch their attack, the alien commanders felt a growing sense of unease. Every previous encounter with humans had followed the same pattern where superior technology and overwhelming numbers had somehow led to impossible defeats. The architect ran final simulations using every available computer model to predict the outcome of the coming battle. The results should have shown certain human extinction, but instead displayed error messages indicating that human responses could not be calculated. Admiral Zexkoth addressed his fleet commanders from dozens of different species, explaining that they faced an enemy unlike any in galactic history. These humans had proven that thinking differently could overcome any technological advantage. The Armada began its advance toward Earth, carrying the hopes and fears of an entire galaxy. Every alien civilization watched and waited to see if their combined might could finally eliminate the chaotic influence that threatened everything they had built. As the massive fleet crossed into human space, the aliens prepared for what they believed would be the final battle to preserve galactic order. They had no idea that humans were about to demonstrate their greatest innovation yet. The enemy they faced was not just human ingenuity or creativity, but something far more dangerous. To established authority, they were about to encounter an entire species that had learned to work together while maintaining individual differences. The galaxy held its breath as the greatest military force ever assembled approached a small blue planet whose inhabitants refused to follow the rules that governed civilized behavior. The outcome would determine whether order or chaos would rule the future. Admiral Peter Blake watched the approaching alien armada from Luna Station while coordinating the most ambitious project in human history. The 10,000 enemy ships represented every major power in the galaxy, but Blake was not preparing a traditional military response. Dr. Rachel Kim worked alongside Nobel Prize winners and high school students in laboratories across Earth, developing communication systems that could link every human mind on the planet in real time. The breakthrough technology used principles discovered from studying captured alien equipment. Former Russian engineer Dmitry Volkov collaborated with American pilot Jenny Adams, despite their countries having been enemies just months earlier. The alien threat had erased all national boundaries as humanity realized they could only survive by working together. Marcus Cole sat in his gaming studio, analyzing battle patterns from across the galaxy, using skills he had developed, designing strategy games. The young programmer had discovered that alien fleet movements followed predictable algorithms that could be countered using multiplayer gaming tactics. Every human on Earth and throughout the colonies received neural interface devices that allowed them to share information instantly while maintaining their individual creativity and independence. The technology created a network that combined human cooperation with alien coordination systems. The approaching enemy fleet detected massive energy signatures from human space, but could not understand what they were seeing. Every human ship station and even asteroid mining operation was connected in a communication web that operated faster than light itself. Fleet Admiral Zexkoth studied the readings from his flagship, wondering why the humans were not deploying their ships for a traditional defensive battle. Instead, they seemed to be creating some kind of planetary communication network that served no obvious military purpose. As the alien armada entered the solar system, they encountered something unprecedented in galactic history. Every human facility, from Earth to the outer planets, began working together as a single organism, while each individual component maintained its unique characteristics. The asteroid mining stations that the aliens had dismissed as industrial facilities suddenly revealed hidden weapon systems built from mining equipment and scrap metal. Rock haulers became missile platforms while ore processors turned into electromagnetic pulse generators. Space construction crews abandoned their building projects to deploy defensive barriers made from whatever materials were available. Luxury. Cruise ships that had been evacuated from Earth returned, carrying improvised weapons and volunteer crews ready to fight. The alien fleet tried to use their standard battle formation, but found themselves facing opponents who shared information instantly across light years of space. Every human knew what every other human was thinking and planning in real time. Dr. Kim's communication network allowed Earth's defenders to coordinate attacks with precision that exceeded even the Hive Collective's group mind. But unlike alien coordination systems, each human remained an individual capable of creative thinking and independent action. When the aliens fired their planet-killing weapons at Earth, they discovered that every human facility had become part of a massive defensive grid. Energy shields appeared around the planet powered by fusion reactors that had been hidden throughout the solar system. Marcus Cole's gaming expertise proved invaluable as he predicted alien fleet movements using strategies developed for commanding thousands of players simultaneously. Human defenders knew where the enemy would attack before the aliens themselves had decided. The first major engagement occurred near Jupiter, where converted civilian ships met the alien vanguard in battle. What should have been a massacre became a demonstration of human innovation as cargo haulers destroyed battleships using improvised weapons. Captain Tony Rodriguez commanded a fleet of former merchant vessels that attacked alien formations from directions the enemy had not considered possible. His ships used gravitational slingshots around planets to achieve velocities that violated safety regulations. Engineer Beth Turner deployed mobile repair stations throughout the solar system that could restore damaged human ships in minutes, while alien vessels required hours or days to fix similar damage. Her crews worked with desperate efficiency that amazed even themselves. The aliens tried to use their dimensional weapons to attack from angles that did not exist in normal space, but found that humans simply ignored the rules that made such attacks possible. Human ships fought back using three-dimensional tactics that confused multi-dimensional opponents. Psionic attacks that should have paralyzed human crews instead encountered minds linked in ways the aliens could not understand or disrupt. The communication network created mental static that protected individuals while allowing perfect coordination. As the battle spread throughout the solar system, it became clear that the aliens were not fighting a traditional military force but an entire civilization that had become a single adaptive organism. Every human contribution was unique, but worked toward the same goal. The alien armada began to break apart as their rigid command structure could not adapt to opponents who changed tactics faster than orders could be transmitted between ships. Human flexibility overcame alien organization. Fleet Admiral Zexkoth watched his carefully planned assault dissolve into chaos as human defenders responded to every attack with solutions that his computers said were impossible. The combined might of the galaxy was being defeated by improvised cooperation. The turning point came when human forces stopped trying to destroy alien ships and instead began capturing them, using boarding parties equipped with tools designed for space construction rather than warfare. Cutting torches and welding equipment proved more effective than military weapons. Alien crews found themselves facing opponents who could modify their own ships during battle using spare parts and creative engineering. Human boarding parties did not try to control enemy vessels, but simply change them into something completely different. The psychological impact on alien forces was devastating as they realized their technological superiority meant nothing against enemies who could turn any situation to their advantage through cooperation and creativity. Morale collapsed throughout the enemy fleet. Some alien commanders began surrendering, rather than face opponents who fought wars unlike anything in their military training. Others retreated to the edge of the solar system where they watched in fascination as humans demonstrated capabilities that challenged everything they believed. The final phase of the battle occurred when human negotiators contacted alien ship commanders, directly offering something the galaxy had never seen before. Instead of demanding surrender or threatening destruction, they proposed partnership and cooperation. Admiral Blake transmitted a message to every alien vessel explaining that humans did not want to rule the galaxy or destroy alien civilizations. They simply wanted to share their approach to solving problems through creative cooperation, rather than hierarchical dominance. Many alien crews were tired of rigid military discipline and fascinated by human methods that achieved better results. Through individual initiative within cooperative frameworks, entire ships began defecting to join human forces. The war ended, not with humanity's destruction, but with something the galaxy had never witnessed. A technologically superior force surrendered to opponents they could not understand or defeat using conventional methods. Captain Morrison, now promoted to admiral, led the first joint exploration mission to another galaxy carrying crews that included both humans and aliens who had learned to appreciate chaotic creativity over rigid order. The galaxy would never return to its previous state of hierarchical stability. Human influence continued to spread, as species throughout known space began experimenting with cooperation and innovation rather than following ancient traditions. Some civilizations retreated to isolated regions of space too frightened of change to risk contact with the chaotic influence that humans represented. Others embraced new ways of thinking that led to technological and social advances they had never imagined possible. The age of galactic empires built on technological superiority and rigid hierarchy was ending. In its place emerged something unprecedented, where different species worked together while maintaining their unique characteristics and creative independence. Humanity had won the war not through superior weapons or tactical brilliance, but by demonstrating that cooperation and creativity were more powerful than any technology when applied correctly. The lesson would reshape civilization throughout the galaxy. The greatest innovation humanity had contributed to galactic civilization was not faster than light travel or advanced weapons, but the simple idea that thinking differently was not just acceptable but necessary for continued progress and survival. Commander Alex Murphy guided the UES frontier through the swirling nebula that marked the border between human space and the territory of the Hive Collective. His exploration ship carried 30 crew members and equipment designed for peaceful contact with new alien species. The insectoid beings of the Hive Collective had ruled their section of the galaxy for 8,000 years, using perfect coordination between billions of individual creatures that shared a single group mind. Their queen had heard reports about human victories against the Zilithians, but dismissed them as impossible lies. Navigator Sophie Blake calculated jump coordinates that violated every rule in the standard navigation manual, bringing the frontier out of faster-than-light travel directly inside the Hive's defensive perimeter. The young woman had learned that humans could go places aliens thought were impossible. The Hive ships that surrounded them moved in perfect formation like parts of a giant machine, where every component knew exactly what every other part was doing. Their weapons targeted the human ship with mathematical precision that should have made escape impossible. But Commander Murphy had studied insect behavior during his biology training and understood that creatures with group minds had trouble dealing with truly random events. He ordered his crew to take actions that made no logical sense and followed no predictable pattern. Engineer Carlos Mendez powered up every piece of equipment on the ship, at once creating electromagnetic noise that interfered with the Hive's telepathic communication network. The signal chaos confused the alien coordination system and caused their ships to fly into each other. The Hive Queen tried to understand what was happening to her perfectly organized fleet, but human unpredictability was like a virus in her group mind. She could not predict what the humans would do next because they themselves did not know until they did it. Sophie Blake jumped the frontier to locations that orbital mechanics said were impossible, using gravity assists from asteroids and planetary debris that most navigators ignored. The Hive ships tried to follow, but their computers could not calculate paths that violated physical laws. Meanwhile, in the territory of the Resonance Communion, crystalline beings were preparing to face their first human contact with confidence that their harmonic weapons would easily defeat any primitive technology. Their cities were built from living crystal that sang with frequencies that could shatter metal and bone. The UES Explorer under Captain Maria Santos encountered a resonance patrol fleet near their border worlds where massive crystal ships moved through space, creating beautiful music that was also deadly to most forms of life. The alien vessels began charging their sonic weapons. Engineer Tim Johnson had brought along equipment that most people would consider junk, including old audio speakers and outdated radio transmitters that he used for hobby projects. When the crystal ships attacked, he turned all of this equipment on at maximum volume. The random noise and feedback created by Tim's improvised system disrupted the harmonic frequencies the resonance beings used for everything from communication to navigation. Their crystal ships began to crack and break apart as conflicting sound waves tore through their structures. The crystalline aliens had never encountered anything like human noise pollution, which violated all their principles of ordered harmonic beauty. Their perfectly tuned society began to fracture when exposed to the chaotic sounds humans considered normal. back in Zilithian space. High Commander Vexitar was trying to explain to the Imperial Council why their most advanced fleets kept losing to primitive human technology. The alien leaders could not understand how creatures with such crude equipment could defeat their superior weapons. Admiral Peter Blake received reports from human exploration ships throughout the galaxy, describing victories against alien forces that should have been impossible. Each battle followed the same pattern with human creativity, defeating alien technological superiority. The Quantum Collective tried to use their ability to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously to surround human ships from directions that did not exist in normal space. But humans simply ignored the rules that said this was impossible and fought back using three-dimensional tactics. The Psionic Confederacy attempted to control human minds directly using telepathic powers that had enslaved hundreds of other species. They discovered that human thoughts were too chaotic and unpredictable to control, creating mental feedback that damaged the alien psychics. Dr. Karen Walsh analyzed battle reports from across the galaxy and realized that every alien species had the same fundamental weakness. They all relied on advanced technology and established tactics that could not adapt to completely unexpected human approaches. The pattern was becoming clear to military analysts throughout known space. Humans did not just fight wars differently. They approached every problem from angles that other species never considered. This made them nearly impossible to defeat. Using conventional methods, news of human victories spread through diplomatic channels as alien governments began to take the human threat seriously for the first time. Species that had considered themselves invincible were suddenly afraid of primitive mammals who refused to follow established rules. The Mechanical Union tried to overwhelm human ships with robot fleets that operated with perfect efficiency and coordination. Humans responded by reprogramming captured robots to attack their own forces using simple computer viruses that the aliens had never encountered. The energy beings attempted to drain power from human ships using their ability to absorb any form of electromagnetic radiation. They discovered that humans could generate power using chemical reactions and mechanical systems that did not depend on electronics. Each alien defeat led to more desperate attempts to find weapons and tactics that could counter human ingenuity. The galaxy's most advanced civilizations began working together for the first time in centuries because they all faced the same impossible enemy. The Galactic Defense Network analyzed human combat patterns using the most sophisticated computers ever built, but could not find any logical framework that explained human tactical decisions. Every algorithm failed when trying to predict what humans would do next. Some alien species began to panic as they realized their technological superiority was meaningless against opponents who could turn any situation to their advantage, using creativity and improvisation. Fear spread through civilizations that had ruled the galaxy for millennia. The Hive Queen called an emergency meeting of all collective minds to discuss the human problem, but could not reach any consensus about how to fight an enemy that existed outside their understanding of warfare. The group mind was breaking down under exposure to human chaos. Captain Murphy continued his exploration of hive space, finding that individual insects separated from the collective were actually quite intelligent and capable of independent thought. Some of them began to question why they needed a queen to think for them. The crystal beings of the Resonance Communion started to experiment with noise and discord, finding that imperfection could create new forms of beauty they had never imagined. Their harmonious society began to change as they learned to appreciate human chaos. Reports reached Earth describing alien civilizations that were starting to adopt human methods and technologies. Some species were even requesting peaceful contact. To learn more about human approaches to science and warfare, Admiral Blake realized that humanity was not just winning a war. They were accidentally teaching the galaxy that there were alternatives to the rigid hierarchical systems that had dominated space for thousands of years. This was far more dangerous to established powers than any weapon. The fear of human influence was spreading faster than human ships as alien leaders realized their subjects might start thinking like humans if exposed to their ideas. The threat was not just military, but social and political as well. Emergency sessions were called in every major alien government as they debated how to contain the human problem before it destabilized their entire civilization. Some wanted to negotiate while others demanded the complete destruction of humanity. The galaxy was changing whether the established powers wanted it or not, because humans had introduced something that could not be uninvented. The idea that thinking differently was not just possible but advantageous was spreading like wildfire through species that had been static for millennia.